It is 6:01. It is Monday, January 10th, and this is the first regular council meeting of 2022. So happy New Year, everyone, and welcome back to council chambers. Just a reminder that the meeting tonight is being recorded. The first item is adoption of the minutes. There's 3 sets of minutes for us tonight. Governance and Operations Committee meeting of December 13th, 2021. The public hearing of December 13th, 2021, and regular council meeting of December 13th, 2021. The recommendation is that the 3 sets of minutes be adopted as circulated. Do I have someone to make that recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Gattafoni Robinson, and seconded by Councillor Doby. Does anyone see any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? Against, if any? Carried. We're on to public question period. So I just want to remind everyone that with respect to the Birchwood development, I know that there's several people in council chambers right now, that no questions or presentations can be made on that bylaw that is coming forward to council. Council cannot receive any more input on it, and the opportunity to express your opinion was at the December 13th public hearing. So with that, I'm just going to ask Ms. McIsaac, was there any email correspondence that was set in that we need to address under public question period?
No, there was not.
Okay, thank you very much. And is there anyone in council chambers up top there with Sandy Lucchini that wishes to address council on a matter other than the Birchwood development?
I don't have anyone wanting to address council.
Okay, thank you very much. So no public question period for tonight. Item number 3 is bylaws. 3.1 is a zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw 2910-2021, an official community plan bylaw amendment, bylaw 2911-2021. And Ms. McIsaac, I am going to turn the floor over to you to brief council.
Thank you, Worship. Cesare Chiesic Construction applied to rezone a property legally described as Lot 1, Plan EPP 111259, which is just accessed off of Birchwood Drive, from single-family and 2-family residential R2 to high-density multiple-family residential zone R8 to allow the construction of a 45-unit seniors housing development on the property. An amendment to the city's official community plan would also be required to change the designation of the land in question from single detached residential SR to multiple residential MR. The bylaws received first and second readings on November 22nd, 2021, and were the subject of a public hearing held on December 13th, 2021. At the public hearing, council received verbal and written submissions from the applicant, as well as from property owners in the vicinity. And the minutes of the public hearing have been attached to the reporting that was provided to council in your agenda packages. In accordance with council policy, third readings of the bylaws were deferred at the December 13th regular council meeting, and staff was directed to prepare reporting with respect to concerns raised. So council does have a policy that when concerns are raised at public hearing, there must be opportunity for council to discuss them prior to advancing with third reading. The purpose of tonight's reporting is to summarize the concerns that were brought forward at the public hearing for council discussion. As outlined in the reporting, the predominant concern that was raised at the public hearing related to traffic. There will most definitely be an increase in traffic generated by the development, and you did hear from neighboring properties with concerns in that regard. The property would be accessed off of what is presently an undeveloped road right away near the south end of Birchwood Drive. Road access to the property and its surface parking facilities would be constructed at the rear of the properties at 8109, 8119, and 8121 Birchwood Drive, resulting in some noise disturbance and loss of privacy for those properties. With respect to traffic impacts, all of the properties in the 8100 block of Birchwood Drive would be exposed to an increase in traffic because As vehicles travel up Birchwood Drive, they'd be passing by those properties in the 8100 block before turning right to access the undeveloped, well, what is presently an undeveloped road right away. So those concerns with respect to increase in traffic are real. The parking congestion was also raised as a concern by many of the respondents. They did express concern that on-site parking might be insufficient to accommodate the resident and visitor vehicles, whereby vehicles would end up parking on Birchwood Drive in front of their properties. Just as a reminder to council, off-street parking must be provided in accordance with the requirements of the city's zoning bylaw. As proposed, it was indicated that a total of 59 parking stalls would be included. 28 of those would be underground, 31 surface, which should be sufficient to satisfy the parking needs of the development. However, once the building plans are finalized, staff would review those again to ensure that there is compliance with the off-street parking requirement. Concerns were raised with respect to construction-related disturbances and damages. Also noise, parking congestion during construction, and these are undoubtedly a very real concern for the neighboring properties. They're not specific to the change in land use. So those sorts of disturbances, whether the property is being developed for the new proposed use or for a single and two family residential subdivision, those concerns would be experienced. So it's not specific to the change in land use. It's also important to note that if there are any damages through construction, it is the contractor, the property developer, who would be responsible for that. There were concerns brought forward at public hearing with respect to the loss of privacy, view, and sun exposure, primarily due to the height of the building as proposed. And these are real concerns. The maximum building height for the present zoning of the property, the R2 zone, would allow for a principal building of 10 meters in height, whereas the R8 zone, which is being proposed, allows a maximum building height of 20 meters. So with that, there would be some loss of privacy for neighboring properties, as well as some blockage of the view and sun exposure as a result of the high building height. With respect to aesthetics, some concern was expressed at the public hearing that the proposed development would not be in keeping with the existing single family and two family residentially developed neighborhood. This would be the fourth and final phase of Birchwood Drive. And as was originally proposed, it is, of course, a change in why council is considering the zoning amendment. But with that in mind, there is some mixed uses already in the neighborhood. There are the single and two family developed properties on Birchwood and DeVito Drive. We've got the Juanita Plaza in close proximity, as well as Rosewood Village. So we do have some mix of land use in that area already existing. Some concern was also expressed with respect to the impact of the development on existing water services in the area and whether the city's infrastructure could support a development of this size. So it's important for council to know that if the development is approved, the property would be serviced at the cost of the developer. And the Public Works Department was asked whether or not there would be any impacts on existing water services and has advised that the existing water services would not be impacted by the proposed development, as the building would be connected to an 8-inch looped water main system. It's understood that some of the properties on Birchwood, I think those in the 7900 block, are serviced by a dead-ended water main system. So it could be those properties that experience some difficulties with water pressures, but the new development being on a loop system wouldn't have an impact on existing services. Lastly, to summarize, there were concerns with respect to ownership and affordability of the suites. the developer had noted an intention to restrict ownership of the rental and units to be offered for sale to Trail residents. And people questioned how that would be put into effect. And they also expressed concern about lack of information provided around what the selling price of these units would be. And it's important for council to recognize that these particular concerns don't relate to land use and shouldn't be factored into the council decision-making. You are making a decision as to whether or not a 45-unit apartment building or condominium building is suited for that site. You're not making decisions around how those properties will be offered for sale and what strata or other regulations will be put into place. So those, I would say, summarize some of the concerns that you all heard. It would now be appropriate for council for you to have discussion around them, leaving it to your discretion as to whether or not to proceed with third readings of both the zoning bylaw and the official community plan bylaw. If you don't feel that the development is in the best interest of the community as a whole, then it would be appropriate for you to abandon those bylaws. So at this point, it's being suggested that you have your discussion around the concerns raised and provide your direction on with respect to third readings of the two bylaws.
Okay, do I have anyone from council who would like to start the discussion? Robert, your hand is up. Councillor Kashoni, go ahead.
Thank you. I understand the concerns raised, but I do intend to support this particular bylaw and the construction of the 45-unit residence on that particular site. I'm going to give you the reasons, and one of the major reasons is that generally as a council, we have to make decisions based upon what's best for the entire community. And I'll give you two examples just so people can understand my thinking. There's a daycare center now at the old Sunningdale School just down the street from me. Now, before that was turned into a daycare center, the number of traffic after it closed as a school would be somewhere between 3 and 4 cars a day coming down that street. Well, now there's somewhere between 30 and 40 cars coming up and down that street, and some at excessive speeds. And I raised that with the RCMP. And I thought to myself, well, I could have complained about that, but I didn't. I thought to myself, there's so many families in the area that really need daycare. And in that case, then I'm not going to interfere in any way with that service that's provided by that group. And they provide a wonderful service for those children. 2, we've now got a grant of over $2.5 million or $2.3 million to construct a daycare in Tadnak, at the entrance to Tadnak. Now, I realize it's at the entrance of Tadnak, but still, once again, when you're looking at that, this is the extended time daycare, which is very, very important to people who are working different hours. And I know most families now have 2 people working virtually all the time just in order to make ends meet. So in that case, I would think that maybe people in Tadnak could say, well, look, we've got a very unusual situation here. We've got beautiful homes on large lots, and we really don't want to have a daycare even at the center there. And I know if I were in Tadnak and they were going to ask me, I would say, well, yes, I understand that we have beautiful homes and we've enjoyed sort of a separate sort of living up there because it's a very nice area. I love it up there. But for the benefit of the city, for the best interest of the city, then I would be supporting that daycare for those particular children and families. So as my thinking goes, and each time I make a decision, and I'm always very blunt about it, I guess, whenever I vote, whenever I make a decision, I always try to make a decision what I consider in the best interest of the city, not in the specific instances for particular groups. And the last thing I'll mention too is that we've had occasion over the last number of years when we had, for example, the opportunity to have the casino in Trail, and council went to the same procedure we did here now. And at that point, we were pressured by a number of groups not to have that casino because it was going to interfere with the downtown. It was going to do a lot of things. And of course, that vote came to council, and we turned down that particular proposal. And we've also turned one down on the opening of Violent Lake because of particular groups, pressures from different groups. And I don't fault you one bit for coming out and making yourself known and saying that you're in opposition to it. And I understand it totally, but those are the reasons why I believe it's in the best interest of the city of Trail. And that's why I'm going to support it. Thank you for your time.
Okay, does anyone else want to make a motion or make a comment?
No, I might as well go ahead.
Go ahead, Councillor Santori.
Thank you. Well, as Michelle indicated, many of the concerns that were raised were not relevant in terms of zoning and land use. And I think for those people that have known me for quite some time would consider me to be very progressive, and I want to see growth. Now, having said that, and I've gone up to that site, I would say at least 7 times in the last 10 days. And my biggest concern with this project, and don't get me wrong, I totally understand the need for seniors housing, but I do have a real difficult time accepting the density increase. There's a total now of 41 units total between duplexes and single family dwellings up at Birchwood. We are basically doubling the size of that particular area with this one project. And I think density is going to be a major issue up there. The road itself, forget the snow. I was up there today, and with snow piled on both sides, it's very difficult for 2 cars to pass. But even without the snow, I do not believe that it is equal to the size of, say, the subdivision up in Merrill Heights. I believe Merrill Heights the roads are considerably wider. And I, like Robert Cochoni, would like to make decisions that are on the best interest of the community. But having said that, and this might not be the perfect example, we could probably use 30 or 40 new jobs. Well, that doesn't mean that we would put a meat processing plant down on the Esplanade either, even though the 40 jobs would be nice. So I would caution council when it comes to these type of requests in terms of density. And I know that the OCP is a living document and it can change as we go, depending on the degree of the change and the impact that it would have in the immediate area. In this case, it's not an incidental inconvenience. I think we will find that we will have significant issues with traffic. And as I said earlier, I mean, I've been up there, like I said, 7 or 8 times in the last 10 days. And I really have concerns over density. And it's kind of tears me apart because I do know that we need seniors housing and affordable housing. On the other hand, we also need single family and duplexes, and that area, in my opinion, would be more conducive to the similar development that exists up there today. And, you know, I do give credit to the developer in wanting to pursue this. But having said that, I would not be in favor of this development, and that we retain the zoning to be consistent with the development that exists up there right now.
Okay, does anyone else want to make a comment or make a motion? Councillor Dobie, go ahead.
Hey, thank you, Mayor Payson. I understand the concerns as well of the residents up there in making this size of a change to their community. And I know Councillor Santori spoke to the traffic issue, but you know, one thing we've been living with in Trail since the inception of Trail is how narrow the streets are up in West Trail. And one day last week, our city crew spent the whole day up just clearing the snow and trying to pack it away. when those houses were built years ago, there was a lot of people that didn't have vehicles. Now there's a lot of families up there that have 2 vehicles. So parking and bypassing one another on the roads up there in winter is a horrendous situation, more so than what it probably would be out behind the mall. But I still do understand your concerns there. The one thing that I think the 2 things that councillor is facing the most, one is homelessness and all the issues that are attached to that. And that is a very difficult problem and almost unsurmountable problem for us to try to solve. We need big involvement and money from the provincial government for that. The second big issue that we have is senior housing. We're seeing that all the time. I don't know where else right now we can think of putting that. When I look at the location up there, I realize a lot of seniors have access to shopping, have access to banking, have access to medical support, and have access to a church. And there's also an eating establishment and the food court in the center of the mall. So there's a lot of things that are really going to help seniors that might be restricted in their mobility. And for those 2 reasons, what we're prepared to offer by housing those seniors up there, and the fact that we are responding to a great need in the community, I am going to support this project. And it's been one of those decisions, I always say, I wish we had a sit on the fence vote, because it's been one of those decisions that hasn't been easy to come to, but I'm trying to respond to the greatest needs in the community and making my decision. Thank you, Mayor Payson.
Okay, Councillor Jones, your hand was up next.
Yes, it was. Thank you very much. I have to say, for the exact same reasons that Councillor Dobie spoke, I have a few comments to make as well. We all know that in this area, in the trail and outlying area, there's a desperate need for housing. We just recently had a report from the regional district saying that housing is one of the highest priorities for this area at this time. We need affordable housing, accessible housing, and senior housing is the most important. By addressing the senior housing issues, we also open up housing for the younger generation who are moving to this area, hopefully moving to this area to, access jobs and a healthy lifestyle. At this time, the new housing costs are too much for them. So I believe that moving into the seniors into this affordable housing will open up housing for the younger generation. And people, aren't moving to this area because we don't have affordable housing. I feel the same way as Carol does. It's a very difficult situation. We have a lot of friends up in that area. I understand your concerns about the traffic and the project being too big for the site. And I too went up there and walked the site, and I sort of wondered how it was going to fit up there. It's a big project, but I have to believe that also the contractor has done the work to be able to put a project of that size up there. My concern, and when I go through the report from our meeting last time, and I look at how many people, comment about the traffic. Well, when we pass this bylaw, it's not concerning, as Michelle explained, about the traffic. Our concern is about the bylaw to open up the housing zone. So I would believe that, or I would question the city if it's their responsibility to do something about the traffic issue up there. I would ask staff if, and Michelle, maybe you can answer this, is this something that, a concern that the city should be looking at? If we're moving forward and increasing the housing up there, it should be our responsibility to do something about the traffic as well. The issue that I believe, sorry, I don't want to lose my notes. And when we talk about the price of the unit, let's be really clear right now, because anything that we are building, anything that we are constructing, or anything that involves any wood or materials from outside the community, the expense for this building is increasing on a weekly basis, almost a monthly basis. And I believe that if we don't build this soon, it will be not affordable housing for us. The sooner we get it built, if that's the direction that council goes in, the more affordable it's going to be for the people that we want in these buildings. So I guess for me, Michelle, my question is, I guess I'm turning it back to you about the traffic situation in that area. And I ask this because it is one of the biggest concerns that we've heard all the way through. Oh, sorry, and I have one other question. I know there was a petition, but I haven't seen the petition or the signatures, so I don't know what the wording on the petition was. If it was just against the bylaw completely, or if it had other issues in there. And those are my comments at this time.
Go ahead, Ms. McIsaac.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll do my best to answer the queries from Councillor Jones. With respect to Birchwood Drive, it is of standard width as compared to our residential street. So our subdivision regulation bylaw does require a minimum road width for collector streets. And Birchwood Drive meets that. So although when vehicles are parking on one side or the other, or on both, as is the case in many of our residential neighborhoods, it does become more narrow, but it is adequate for the traffic volumes that are dictated. Where, well, the concerns as I heard it related to this development were that there will be an increase or an influx of traffic as a result of the increase in density. So if that property were developed as a single and two family residential subdivision, it's estimated there would be about 8 lots created there. So there could be up to 16 units. That's an estimate, 16 units of housing as compared to 45 units. So if council does grant this zoning and OCP amendment as has been authorized, there'd be very little the city could do in terms of traffic because we couldn't restrict people from accessing the property. The Birchwood Drive Road right away is adequate width. So if you do have significant concerns around traffic accessing that site, then you wouldn't want to support the proposal as is, because it's understood that an alternate access to the property can't be achieved because of the topography and all of the rocks that are farther to the south where an alternate access may have been constructed, but it's just not understood to be possible. With respect to the petition, it simply included a notation on the top of each page indicating that they weren't supportive of the proposed bylaw. So it was clear that people understood what they were signing, and it was signed by, if memory serves me, 75 or 76 of the residents in the area. And it is on file with the public hearing minutes here at City Hall.
Thank you.
Councillor Gattafoni Robinson.
Yes, I'm also in favor of this project. I understand the issues that the individuals that live up in that area have. I too, before all the snow fell, went up there and looked, and I feel that we're getting traffic heavily everywhere in the city because it seems that more younger people are moving here, and it's just a great place to live. So I agree with all the other councillors, what they said, and I am in favor of this project.
Quick
Does,
question of Michelle.
I
Oh,
think
sorry,
Counselor
Paul.
Counselor
I didn't-
Butler had his hand
No, I
up and
didn't-
then
I didn't-
Counselor Santori.
I just wanted to add in that I do understand and I see and I completely agree with the struggles that this proposal has faced council with. And I do want to reiterate that I do understand Michelle's point about that things such as resale cost estimates can't be made as part of this decision-making process. But I do want to articulate that I am hopeful, or I hope that there are strong and clear mechanisms if this were to go ahead, that within the Strata Act or within the Strata bylaws, that the proposal of the developer is able to fulfill, going on a forward basis, that these homes are used for the intended purpose, and that, you know, hopefully we don't see something like greed or of resale come into play as these homes turn over in the future. I recognize that this is not something to take into consideration, but I did want to make it clear that I think the intended purpose of the developer is a good one and is strong. But I like I said, I would just be hopeful that it is able to go onward as an affordable housing situation for people here in the Greater Trail area. Thank you.
So I just need to clarify, because in listening to what was said at the public hearing and reading documents, when we consider the stratification of housing in the realm of the multiple presentations we've had with BC Housing, being submarket housing, affordable housing, market rate housing, I was not under the impression that the developer was making this into a true sense affordable housing. What he said, it is a senior housing, and senior housing, it can be market rate housing, which is not affordable housing. So I just, I just want to be clear to not mix up the wording, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that this is not pitched as a affordable housing complex for seniors. It is in the true sense of BC housing affordability, like the Columbia Avenue or the one near Safeway. Ms. McIsaac?
Yes, that's a very important clarification, Mayor Payson, and thank you for making it. Some of the commentary at public hearing related to whether or not the units would be affordable. And so I used that term in the summary reporting, but it's very important to note that the developer's intention is to develop a use being seniors housing 55 plus, and that would be restricted and that would be honored. Where at the public hearing, the applicant had indicated that he would have every intention of only selling to trail residents. Those are the sort of mechanisms that were questioned at public hearing, like how would the developer ensure that only trail residents had access to the sale of the properties. Those are matters that I suggest aren't to be taken into account by council as a land use, but most definitely the use of the building as seniors 55 plus housing would be guaranteed.
Okay, Councillor Santori?
Yeah, I think you touched on what I wanted, the comment that I wanted to make with respect to affordability. And we shouldn't even be discussing this, but seeing it's been brought up. I mean, the market is going to determine how much a place sells for. And no developer can, or even, well, let's go even further. I lived in a strata before. Stratas can change their rules at will anytime they want. All they need to do is have a annual general meeting or a special meeting, and they can make changes to that strata. And the city of, and correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, we cannot dictate any decision or overrule any decision made by a strata council. So, you know, I mean, if you look at a duplex now up in Birchwood, I think the last two sold in excess of $550,000 and $600,000. I don't know, is that affordable? Might be to some, and it might not be to others. So, you know, I hope people don't get hung up on the fact that these are going to be affordable. At the end of the day, they may be $800,000, $900,000, and that would not be out of the realm. The duplexes down by the riverside are selling, starting at $750,000. So, you know, you make your decision based on your reason, but I think it's important that you don't take the affordable part, because it's not an affordable housing project by any stretch of the imagination. I just wanted to make sure that it doesn't enter people's, if that's what the reason they're supporting this. So anyways, my position stands. Because of traffic and density, I will be opposing. I will not be in favor of the development.
Okay, I have Councillor Kashoni and then maybe Councillor Butler.
I'll move
So-
approval. I'll move approval of third reading.
Okay, do I have someone to second that? Councillor Doby. Now, Councillor Butler, did you have a question or a
Oh.
comment? Oh, sorry, hang on.
When I
Hang on.
make the motion, I get to
Don't
speak to it.
Okay, hang on. I just
I can
lost
just-
track of it here.
If I could just have one moment, Councillor Kashoni. So I would ask if you are going to be making motions with respect to the two bylaws, that we handle them separately. So with respect to the motion that was just advanced by Councillor Kashoni and seconded by Councillor Doby, it will be recorded that council agreed to provide third reading to the zoning bylaw amendment bylaw number 2910, 2021.
Okay, so the
So we
first
got
one.
2911. I'm reading.
We're doing them separate, Councillor Kashoni,
Why would you do that?
because Michelle just told us to.
Well, I don't-
And we've
Really,
done the
she
zoning
explained
and the
it.
official, we've done the zoning and the official community plan separate on every other occasion that we've advanced these. So you moved and Councillor Doby first and seconded the zoning bylaw amendment bylaw 2910 2021. The floor is now yours to speak, followed by Councillor Butler. And then if that passes, then we have to have another motion for the official community plan bylaw amendment bylaw 2911. Okay?
This is just in reaction to the, what you call affordable housing. Because my brother's passing, they were looking at selling property in Kelowna. So I've been asked to sort of take a look at property over the whole Okanagan. And I can tell you this, that apartments are selling between 30 and 40% lower than single family dwellings. So that's just a given. Now, it may not be affordable in the sense of what it happens to be, but when you're looking now at houses, say, for example, in East Trail, some houses on the new assessment assessed at $500,000, then something less than that in an apartment of 45 would be considered, to me, at least, to be affordable. Now, what's affordable to one person may not be affordable to another, but you can definitely state, I looked at Penticton, I looked at Osoyoos, I looked at Kelowna, and I looked at Lake Country, and in every instant, the apartments were considerably lower than single family or townhouse developments. So I encourage you to support this particular motion. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to clarify before we go to Councillor Butler. I'm not going to debate whether apartments are less expensive than townhomes and single family homes, because really the finishing and the developer cost is going to determine the ultimate cost of the project. My point was just to make sure that when we use the word affordable, it's not being misconstrued to be a BC housing affordability spectrum where it's subsidized, where there's oversight, where people are having to put bids in to be in the building, and you have to keep your income below a certain threshold. These are basically apartments that are going to be sold in a strata. So that was my point, not to debate single family versus multifamily dwellings and final cost, because I don't know what that is. Councillor Butler, go ahead. I think you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor President. That was exactly what I wanted to make sure that the point was clear here tonight. And I apologize, but I am also very pleased that it has evoked a conversation within the group, because I think it's important that the community at large understand that this is not affordable housing, nor will it ever be affordable housing in the true sense of the word. And I think I'm glad that this conversation has happened, because it needed to go on record that there is no mechanism within the Strata Property Act to allow Canada, as we all know, is open to foreign buyers. So there is no way you can restrict property sales down the road to certain individuals over. The only bylaw that is allowed within the Strata Property Act is senior housing or 50 age grouped housing, which I also want to remind and collectively put out there that is seen as discriminatory when it comes to financing with insurers such as CMHC. So I just want it to be clear, and I'm glad we've had the conversation, like I say, that I don't want people in the greater community to sort of be upset that we talked about affordable housing, and that's not what we're coming out at the end of the game with here. So, but thank you. So I thank all of council for having the conversation with me tonight.
Okay, Councillor Jones.
Well, thank you for that information, Paul. But I need some clarifications. So the contractor has said that it will be just for 55 and older trail residents. And are you saying that he can't say that's discriminatory?
Well, no, I'm not saying that. If you look into the Strata Property Act of British Columbia, it allows for age-limited buildings, which are quite common, I would argue, and I believe that there are several in the trail area. It's seen as discriminatory by insurers because it's not allowing all Canadians access to housing. So if people have their own funds or are receiving traditional financing to purchase, those rules are fine. But I think it's important to remember that unless the developer has a way or a mechanism, which I'm unaware of, to limit it resales to trail residents only, I just don't know how that's going to pan out in future resale. So, but like I said, this is not part of our decision tonight. Our decision, as Ms. McIsaac has stated, is that it's based on the greater good of the community and the zoning, not on these types of details. Thank you.
Okay, so is there any other questions on the zoning bylaw amendment? There's a motion by Councillor Kashoni, second by Councillor Dobie. Any other questions on this before we go to a vote? Okay, I'm going to need to see hands on this one. All in favor? Against, if any?
Sorry, I didn't.
Colleen, you didn't vote.
I know. Yes, I did vote.
Oh,
So you
What was the
voted
vote?
for the
what was
motion?
vote now?
For the motion, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Michelle, what was the vote then? I didn't see
5-2.
it. 5-2?
Yeah. So
Who
now
voted-
it's the official
Who voted
community.
who voted against it? I didn't see that.
I was opposed.
I recorded Councillor Santori as opposed.
That's 6-1. Not
Okay.
5-2.
Okay,
Is that correct, Michelle?
That's how I recorded it.
okay.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so next is the official community plan bylaw amendment, bylaw 2911-2021. I need a motion for this to carry that.
And this would be third reading of the official.
Sorry, thank you.
So move, so move.
Councillor Gattafoni Robinson, do I have someone to second?
Second.
Councillor Jones, thank you. Any questions on this matter? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Against, if any? Carried. Thank you. All right, next is council procedure bylaw amendment bylaw 2914-2021 adoption. Ms. McIsaac, if you're ready, I'll let you do the briefing for this one.
Thank you, Worship. With respect to the council procedure bylaw, this amendment bylaw is before you for adoption tonight. Changes have been made that allow for council to participate in all meetings electronically, and it is felt in order to continue with the hybrid approach that the city has been utilizing with the Zoom meetings combined with some in-person attendance. It is increasing our transparency and accessibility by our residents. So changes are being made to our council procedure bylaw to allow for council to continue to meet electronically for all of the meetings. And we do provide in our agenda packages instruction to the public as to how they can either participate electronically by observing electronically, or how they can attend at City Hall in the council chambers in order to see and hear the goings on of the council meetings. So at this time, the bylaw is available for adoption, and it is being recommended that you proceed as such.
Okay, do I have someone to make that motion? Is that the council procedure bylaw amendment bylaw 2914-2021 be adopted? Councillor Butler and Councillor second. Ms. Lucchini, can I just ask you to turn the volume off on your base set there? We're getting a little bit of feedback if you can. Thank you. Okay, so moved by Councillor Butler, second by Councillor Jones. Anyone have any questions on this matter? No, all in favor? Against, if any? Carried. All right, council committee reports. Councillor Jones, you're first.
Thank you, Mayor Payson. I have no committee reports.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Butler. And you're on mute.
I have nothing to, thank you, Your Worship. I have nothing to report.
It's too early in the year for us all. Councillor Dobie, go ahead.
I really have nothing to report either, but I'd just like to make a comment on the efforts of our yards crew in keeping up with the city. I know some people are kind of frustrated. I'm sure all the other councillors have been receiving phone calls as well. But just need to reassure the committee, or the community rather, that all our equipment is out on a daily basis, and a lot of days we're working double shifts. So I think accolades to the cleanup crew is necessary, and I wish to say that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kashoni.
I have a short report. The preliminary budget for the regional district is looking at a 6% increase, or $280,000 for the city of Trail. Last year it was 0.1%. This year 6%, which is 60 times the average for the last, or 45 times the average for the last 3 years, and 60 times last year's. So I have already expressed through email and conversation by phone concerns about this budget, and we're going to be looking at it. We've already scheduled 2 special meetings on it, and I am going to be looking at the budget. I looked at it all weekend, and I think there's a number of areas we can save money and cut that budget down. And also I have reached out to a number of the other directors, and I have got a pretty good response for some of the ones who want to keep this budget in control. It is not something that I could support given the situation people are in. Number 2, the $63 million pollution control center. We've hired the project manager team, and that project hopefully will go ahead as soon as possible. And I know Councillor Santori is going to be making an announcement about that particular when he does his report. The $4.6 million for McKelvey Creek, the organic diversion upgrade, it's going to be bored over 5+ years. And that's good because that'll keep that budget down. Just so we understand the boundary upgrade for the organic diversion, we had $2.3 million in a grant, the $1.2 million in surplus from the airport sale. So we basically got the entire organic diversion and the upgrade to boundary done without taxing the citizens of the area at all. The $700,000 grant for the green bin is to provide the containers for the organics, and I'm very pleased with that. And that's going to cut it. Plus, we also have a couple of other bids in for grants, and hopefully something's going to come up out of that. The projection for the organics is fall 2022, and the result is a possible 40% reduction in landfill fill and landfill waste and savings for the garbage collection. The 40% of the life of the landfill is going to be extended. I can't emphasize this enough. When you extend that landfill by 40%, you're looking at saving millions of dollars, not hundreds of thousands. I posted my positions for the RDKB. I'm going to be chair of the regional liquid waste, which is the $63 million project, chair of utilities. I'm on the solid waste committee and the landfill committee. I'm on East End, and I'm on the recycle committee for the green bins. And I've posted that, and I've sent a bunch of information on finance through to the reading file. But if anybody wants it specifically, I can send them out individual ones. Thank you very much.
Any questions for Councillor Kashoni? Seeing none, Councillor Gattafoni Robinson, go ahead.
I have nothing to report, Your Worship.
Okay, Councillor Santori, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will report briefly on today's GOC, which was a relatively light agenda. This afternoon, we had two delegations before council. One was the British Columbia Social Procurement Initiative. It was a very complex, I found, presentation. But the essence of the presentation was to change the way the city procures purchases and contracts that go out to tender, to ensure that the outcome of the awarding of those contracts are not based solely on price, but on total value in terms of what those projects and those purchases would return back to the community. That's very general in terms of my explanation. It is quite detailed in terms of the process. If the city council decides to move ahead, of course, it will entail many of our employees to take part in specific training initiatives, and there's templates in terms of how bid processes will go out, how RFPs will go out. But at the end of the day, the objective here is to ensure that we do purchase local and that contracts take into account environmental sustainability, fair wages, and the list goes on. So it is a new way. There's about 30 communities within the province of British Columbia that have undertaken this initiative and have already realized savings. I believe it was money back into the community to the tune of about $200 million, if memory serves me correctly. It is supported by the province of British Columbia. And their objective, of course, is to continue to focus on small rural communities who can participate on this. The annual fee is, I believe, was $700 for support of the association. So that pretty much sums it up in very general terms in terms of what the presentation was. The second one was from the Selkirk College Bridging Rural Homelessness and Wellbeing Project, which is being driven by Selkirk College and the nursing program and the work and assistance that the nurses do in the communities of Trail, Castlegar, and Nelson. And their request before council was for $7,500. So the overall goal of the project was to improve the well-being of West Kootenay residents that are experiencing challenges, whether it be homelessness or addiction to drugs or other substances. And council continues with their goal to do whatever we can as a community to assist the most vulnerable in our community and to help them deal with the issues that they're facing on a day-to-day basis. And therefore, council did approve the $7,500. And this group, well, Selkirk is also approaching the city of Castlegar and the city of Nelson. And our hope is that both communities will jump on board with this request to help provide this valuable service. The last item on the agenda, Your Worship, is the RDKB request for a building bylaw exemption. Changes made by the Ministry of Environment recently was required that any building permit that came out, that it would, hold on here, that it would then, hold on. Any building permit that comes out whereby there is a change of use, require a change of use of the land, it would require soil testing, contaminated sites reports and studies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. At the end of the day, this is not a land use change that is being requested. Nothing is changing from what is there. So on the advice from the Department of, I believe, Ministry of Environment or the Contaminated Sites Office, their recommendation to the regional district was to ask the city to exempt the building permit bylaw, which was brought before us today. In doing so, this will expedite the project that Robert Kashoni was talking about. It will expedite it as quickly as possible. Failure to do so could cost the city of Trail hundreds of thousands of additional dollars if the project is delayed. And if we were to engage in the building permit process and that the other things would be triggered, we could add months and months to this project. So having said that, though, this does not preclude the regional district from complying with BC Building Code as it applies to any construction of any particular building. So in terms of structures going up, BC Building Code still prevails, and those rules and regulations around BC Building Code must be adhered to. So with that submission from the regional district and the explanation provided by our deputy CEO, council approved the exemption as requested. And I believe that was everything that we dealt with in the GOC, and I have nothing else to report, Your Worship.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Councillor Santori? Seeing none. Okay, short report from me today. So I attended a Trail Community Action Team meeting with Councillor Butler, and this was in support of their work with vulnerable populations. They focus on community education and outreach and anti-stigma work. They reported they have approximately $30,000 raised through grant applications for anti-stigma work, and have posted the job opportunity for social media / communications coordinator to help with their Facebook page to get the messaging out on anti-stigma work, and also to promote any future educational opportunities that they have. They have approximately $40,000 raised for an OPS, overdose prevention site. So IH increased the amount to $20,000, which they, over last year's allocation, to hold pop-up OPSs. And these have been occurring at the United Church. So the pop-up OPSs started kind of in the latter part of the year, maybe this summer-ish. They will be going with more frequency now that they have additional funding from IH. And just a reminder that the implementation of overdose prevention sites is a health matter, and the decision-making on how and if that will happen in the City of Trail is going to be directed from health. And they spoke about the most important with the OPSs, the most important component, or one of the most important components, is the drug testing for safety, because there is just such a toxic drug supply going around, and we're seeing in overdoses that are happening in our community. Reminder that the coldest night of the year fundraiser is occurring on February 26th, and this program supports the Getting to Home program. The Getting to Home program is run by Career Development Services, and this helps to house precariously housed individuals. So please watch for your opportunity to support and sponsor and donate to the Getting to Home program. I believe last year they raised about $30,000, which was wonderful for the program. So with respect to COVID, a couple things with COVID here. So the vaccination clinics have now moved to the Juanita Plaza again, the old Zellers building that started today. They're vaccinating 7 days a week. So for anyone who needs to get vaccinated, wants to get vaccinated, or wants to get your booster, please go online and register when you are allowed. And it's really important with the spread of Omicron in our community to ensure that everyone has their maximum amount of safety and protection and get vaccinated. So it's no longer at Cairo, moving it out to Zellers because of the increased demand and the number of people that are going to be going through the area. And just from a public health order perspective, if you're not feeling well, please stay home and self-isolate until your symptoms have subsided. Call 811 if you have any questions for testing. Councillor Doby talked a little bit about the snow, so I just wanted to touch base on this because there was another email that came out today. So obviously we just went through a very bad weather period of snow with massive accumulations of snow. I just want to concur that we have had every person and available piece of equipment out, but clearly it was hard to keep up with the accumulation of snow. The city and its staff, and I'm sure council, has received multiple emails of complaints and calls. We were aware of the situation and we're doing our best. And I just want to thank everyone for their patience and understanding and the kindness shown to our staff members, whether they worked in a building or outside of the building. We can only do what we can do with people and equipment, specifically during these heavy snowfall amounts. And I just, there was an email out in the latter part of this afternoon just highlighting that much like the entire trail community and greater trail community and province and world that is being impacted by COVID, so is our city works. And we are experiencing people having to stay home and self-isolate because they're sick or potentially sick. And with that comes staffing shortages. So we might have to close some facilities or decrease hours of facilities so that we can have staff working there. And there will be notices put out on our social media, on our webpage. So you can subscribe to our email blast. Please like and share our Facebook posts, but we will keep you as posted as we can in a timely manner if there is any changes to services in the city because of staffing shortages due to COVID. So, just please keep that in mind as we move through the next month here, that we're not out of the woods yet with this, with weather or with the impacts of COVID. And at the City of Trail, we are doing our best to keep everything open and provide services to the City of Trail and its citizens to the best of our abilities. So that is my report. Any questions before we move on? No? Okay, consent agenda. We have 3 items. Report on invoices paid for municipal services, December 1st to 31st, Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions, UBC meeting follow-up, and Lower Columbia Initiatives Corporation quarterly report. The recommendation is that the items on the consent agenda be received for information. Do I have someone to make that motion?
So moved, Robert.
Thank you, Councillor Gashoni, and second, Councillor Butler. All in favor?
Aye.
Against, if any? And does anyone want anything pulled out for discussion or follow-up? No? Okay, thank you very much. Any new business from the floor?
Yes.
Councillor Santori, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm going to get Michelle to provide some information for council. I'm not sure if council members saw the article in the newspaper last week regarding the lawsuit against the City of Nelson over a fall on a snowbank, etc. Anyways, the first time it went to court, the courts ruled in favor of the City of Nelson, saying that they were not liable for the injuries. The individual then appealed the decision and went to the higher court, which then overturned the ruling of the lower court and is now proceeding to trial. The reason for the overturn was because the higher court found that the snow removal policy that the City of Nelson had in place was not comprehensive enough, or was not detailed enough or specific enough, and therefore that's why they overruled it. So I went to see Michelle the other day just to touch base to see where we are with our snow policy. And I'll let Michelle, I know she's been getting correspondence from the Municipal Insurance Association with respect to best practices, et cetera, and how we can protect ourselves. But I just thought, Michelle, it'd be important for all of council to know that staff is on top of it and where we are with respect to ensuring that the city is safeguarded moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Santori. Just for all of council's information, local governments do have a bona fide policy defense in situations related to slip and falls for snow removal. That is, if there is a policy in place that's been endorsed by council and that is coupled with budgetary constraints. So as a municipality, we can't be expected to clear every roadway, every laneway immediately. So of course we have to prioritize. We have to consider the resources available as well as the budgetary impact. So as long as there is a bona fide policy in place with budgetary constraints, then if in a situation, a very unfortunate situation, someone were to have a slip and a fall because of a lack of snow clearing, the city wouldn't be held liable. So what's come out of the City of Nelson case, it has actually been quite surprising to the local government community, to the law community, as well as to the Municipal Insurance Association of BC, who insures almost all of the local governments in BC, because it was contradictory to all of the common law in place and all of the understandings to this point. So it's a bit unclear as to what will happen at the next at the next trial. However, be assured that the Municipal Insurance Association is providing advice to local governments around ensuring the policies are robust enough and supported by budget. So where Councillor Santori had suggested Nelson's policy was lacking, as I understand it, they had a one-page policy, wasn't necessarily supported through at the council level, was more operational. So not to say that Trails policy is perfect yet. We're going to be watching all of the information coming from the Municipal Insurance Association and our solicitors to see if we do in fact need to fine tune it. But we do have a fairly detailed snow clearing policy. It's several pages in length. It outlines priority routes, and it's also justified in the budget. So with that, we do feel we would be in a fairly good position if in fact there were an unfortunate event to occur, but we will make sure to watch for kind of the best practice that will be coming as a result of this surprising decision at the of the courts.
Thanks, Michelle.
Okay, any other new business? No. Okay, department reports. There are 3 department reports. Department RDKB building report from September, October, and November 2021. The recommendation is that these reports be received for information. Do I have someone to make that motion? Councillor Dobie, Councillor Santori second. All in favor? Against, if any? Carried. And can I have a motion for adjournment, please? Councillor Dobie, thank you very much. Hey, have a good evening, everyone.